Would you be willing to do the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Thank you.
Our dear gracious Father in heaven, we're thankful to be together tonight and on behalf of our community, and thankful for the chance to help with the changes and the working out the problems and the needs that our community has. We're thankful to be able to work together with the city and with the community, and pray that our hearts might be open, that our ears will be open, that we will be able to reason well and have thy help problem solving. And we give thanks and ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We now will open it up for unscheduled public appearances. If you have some comments about something that's going to be on the agenda, if you'd be kind enough to reserve those for later on. But if you want to launch into a soliloquy about war and peace or anything else that is of interest to you, please go ahead. It's rather astonishing. On that note, we shall conclude and move on to the next item of business. Meeting minutes, as everybody has reviewed it. Is there anybody that has any comments with regards to 27th of January?
I move that we approve the meeting minutes from January 27th to 2026.
Second.
Okay, let's just have a roll call on that. Deborah?
Aye.
Yes.
Aye.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Now let's move on to Parkway detail accessory structure setbacks. And this is in response to some public input. But go ahead, Rob. Why don't you walk through this with alacrity, please?
I would be happy to do so. This is an application for a text amendment that was applied for by one of our residents. They're here representing them tonight. So I'll provide kind of an overview of our review, and then I would invite you to hold public hearing and also let them speak and let them correct me if I got anything wrong. In short, kind of just the background of how we got here. Property owner owns property along 4800 West, which, as you know, is one of our Parkway detail streets. And so, in this case, this is the Stony Brook subdivision. The Parkway detail was created and dedicated, but it was done partially within the city's right-of-way, and then the rest, 20 feet of it, was done within two lots that front onto 4800 West. We have a code requirement that, as staff interprets it, requires a 20-foot setback from the Parkway detail. So the general request is to essentially reduce that setback. Their proposal was to do 30 feet from curb. There's other ways of accomplishing that. The general sense, as I've understood it, is essentially just allow reduce that 20 feet down so they can build, and I'll kind of give a diagram in a second here. But as I looked through the history, we've changed the street side setback for accessory buildings a lot, so there's not a ton of consistency. And even in this neighborhood across the street, there's one that there's an accessory structure that does not meet the setback, likely due to an error. Whoever approved it didn't catch it. This was before my time as planner, so I'm throwing someone else under the bus. A lot of Parkway details are located in the right-of-way, while others are located partially within a lot. The legal result is the same, 20 feet from the Parkway detail, but as a practical matter, the impact is different. So before you, this is along Alpine Highway. You can see here, there's the Parkway detail along it. All of these homes have their property lines on the outside of the Parkway detail. So the fence is the property line. So for these homes, the normal 20-foot setback and the Parkway detail setback are the same. It's just 20 feet in from the property line. But for Mr. Armstrong's property and a few others in the city, it doesn't line up the same way. The property line is partially into the parkway detail. And effectively, you can see we require a 30-foot home setback on a corner lot. And this parkway detail accessory structure setback essentially makes it 40 feet from their property line, which is very far into the property, more so than the home, which is typically accessory structures are not as regulated as homes, but in this case, they are more regulated. So their request, as you can kind of see, is to essentially allow it to be pushed up close to that parkway detail, essentially more or less a foot away so they don't damage it, but they can still use their property as much as they are able to do so. We published notice as generally required. We did not receive any comments. This is more of just a policy question, so staff doesn't have a strong recommendation either way. It is just up to the Planning Commission what you believe is best for Highland, what you would recommend. Our only recommendation is if you would like to do something to allow this, we propose some additional language that's a little bit cleaner in our view, and making sure it's not just R140 but all zones, so it's just more equitable. So with that, we recommend holding a public hearing and hearing from the applicant before making a recommendation. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions or...
Super. So why don't we open it up for public comment, and then we'll have a discussion afterwards. So if anybody would like to...
Thank you for having us. I'm going to go ahead and read because this is really beyond my wheelhouse.
Would you mind just stating your name for the record, please?
John Armstrong.
Thank you.
Soon to be resident of Highland City. Got to get the glasses out because I can't see anything. So thank you for your time tonight. I'm here to request approval of a development code text amendment that clarifies how accessory building setbacks are measured when a parkway detail is present. Under the current interpretation, as Rob showed, the code requires 20 feet from the parkway detail. Because the parkway detail is already 29 feet wide, that interpretation effectively creates a 49-foot setback from the street. That results in an accessory structure being subject to a greater setback than the primary home on the same lot. However, as Rob showed in the language, the code language itself uses the word or. It does not say and it does not state that the setback is cumulative or in addition to the width of the parkway detail. The current additive interpretation is not explicitly stated in the code. We can also show a permitted accessory building directly across the street, which he showed on the diagram. The amendment before you does not remove the parkway detail, it does not reduce landscaping, and it simply clarifies that the parkway detail counts towards the setback rather than triggering an additional setback beyond that. This creates a clear and objective measurement from the right-of-way, restores proportionality between primary and accessory structures, and ensures consistent application citywide. Ultimately, our goal is to create a structure that can house toys, whatever we have, and instead of creating visual pollution where they're just kind of sitting on that back corner. Ultimately, that's what the goal is here. So thank you. And I'll turn the time over to the builder, this is his wheelhouse.
Okay, thank you.
Been in here way too much in the last couple of years. Chad Broadhead, and I actually live 2 doors down from where John is building, so I have a vested interest from the building standpoint and also as a resident here. John was good enough to drive around all of Highland, and a lot of the examples he gave me, I think you gave me about 15 examples roughly of different places in Highland that the code had been enforced differently, and I'm sure it's exactly to Rob's point, and Rob's been great about this whole process, but where we find that auxiliary structures are right up to the parkway detail in a number of areas, I don't really see many people put in any accessory structures unless they're able to do that. And a lot of this stems from obviously access, but one of the main issues that John will come up against and the Armstrongs will come up against is that because of that landscape detail and easement being 29 feet and the possibility of the road even expanding further in the future if we have that issue again, he will actually lose his R140 zoning too, which has never been addressed in my mind, and I don't know how that will be addressed. He'll be under the footages and everything else. It creates a real burden on him. And so being able to have this property use that area, especially being right on the Alpine border, if the street does widen, that garage will give him substantially more basically privacy in his backyard. And from all the studies we've had on different projects, we've done a lot of stuff down by I-80 off the Salt Lake Country Club. We've brought in different various professionals. There's no amount of landscaping that will ever stop road noise. It requires physical structures to do that. Landscaping just doesn't do it, period, end of story. And so to future-proof this, because we're in the process of obviously trying to get something designed that will work, the goal is to be able to push it up to that property line. We have issues with fences on this thing. We have so many problems. This would be the one big win we would hope for on this project, is to be able to allow them to come up to that fence, to be able to screen their property. And in their case, I think it's a really beautiful design. So we're just trying to enhance Highland at this point and make sure that we're doing something that actually benefits the city rather than creates an eyesore. So anyway, we just hope that you guys are willing to look at this and give us a fair chance at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that would like to comment? Would you fancy saying something or not? Okay, super. Before we conclude the public comment, may I ask a question? What's your timeline on this? So in your perfect world.
We submitted for a building permit already on this and were rejected because of this.
Okay.
So it's right now, the project is going into installation next week and sheetrock following that. So we're at a point where we would love to be able to move forward one way or another on this. And so we're just trying to...
Wait, so help me understand, have you already built the structure?
No. We're in the process of submitting for building permits. And one of the other things I should add is the house is actually 10 feet away from the property line, where the accessory structure would be
20 feet.
Another 20 feet beyond that even. And so that's where it becomes really odd. We're able to actually put the house closer to the street than the auxiliary building. So
Okay. Thank you.
Immediately is kind of the answer.
Thank you. All right, let's conclude public comments, and commissioners, let's have a discussion about this.
I have a question, Rob. So was there any particular reason why the prior commission or whoever made this code the way it is, why they had the accessory buildings coming inside that much more than what the house setback is?
I couldn't quite determine. I looked back through the minutes, and when they made the change in 2016 to go to 20 feet, they just said they wanted to make sure they had enough of a setback from for corner lots. But they didn't address, I think they were thinking only of properties where the parkway detail was entirely on city property within the right-of-way, not of properties like this where it's within an easement on private property. So I don't know that they fully anticipated this effect. So they were thinking, oh yeah, we want to have a 20-foot setback for accessory structures from a corner lot. That makes sense. But this is imposing essentially a 40-foot if we have a parkway detail on their property. So, but there was no discussion I could find that said this is what they intended to do or why they kind of got to that. It was a really short discussion.
Okay, and this particular instance is always going to be next to a road, right? Where you have that large of a
Correct.
landscape. Okay.
So this is the Armstrong's property is this one up here. So you can see it's a corner lot, and normally we'd have 20 feet back. It's just we have an additional 20 feet in this, the way this lot has been set up and the way the Stony Brook subdivision went in, as compared to like this Alpine Highway where you have the property line. We're just measuring from property line 20 feet in.
Rob, would you be kind enough to just walk us through the history of, because this is very specific to a certain street classification, so
Yes.
if we just expand this into a broader conversation about, minor collectors, and just, because we've got this hodgepodge, some streets don't have curb and gutter, some, developments have established property boundary lines, but there are a lot of properties in Highland where the legal property line goes out into the street.
A great question. So we actually have, a few years ago, I can't quite remember when, it was when Kelly was here, we adopted an updated definition for setbacks, where we measure from, because of that, we have some property lines that go into the middle of the street on Old County roads. We have some where there's no curb and some where there's no sidewalk. So we said it's basically you measure from the closest of back of asphalt, back of curb, or back of sidewalk or property line, whatever essentially you have, and then you start measuring from there. So that's the general rule. This is a very specific rule for parkway details, and I was pulling up our general plan because that tells me where all those streets are. So our parkway detail streets are SR 92, Alpine Highway, 4800 West and North County Boulevard, Highland Boulevard, Beacon Hill Boulevard, 10400 North, and 11800 North. So those are our collectors or arterials in the city.
Do all of those is the parkway detail specifications the same on all of those?
More or less. There's a couple where we have lost the parkway detail because we expanded the road.
Yeah.
And rather than taking someone's property,
Right.
we instead just shortened up the parkway detail. So I think along 6000 West we did that, if I'm
Okay.
remembering correctly.
Yeah, that's why I was asking, because I know that they don't all look the same, right?
They do
But that
not.
makes sense with widening, that you could go into the detail. Yeah.
So may I ask? So my question is, in this scenario, if there is widening of Alpine Highway and the house is closer to the parkway detail, and it's still, the buffer of that parkway detail will still protect it, and it won't give it the same problem that we have on North County Boulevard with the widening that was going on with all those residents that they're wanting to do on that UDOT road, correct? This is on North County.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay.
this is on the north of SR 92.
Okay, right. So with all the people that are concerned about
Yes.
property disappearing and part of this isn't putting it in jeopardy of a future problem.
There's no plan to do the widening here. That was the whole, as I'm sure you all have fond memories of, the whole
Yes.
discussion we had a year or two ago about 4800 West. Currently, the plan is only doing some intersection improvements and turn lanes at right next to SR 92. If there were to be widening in the future, what would happen is there would be an acquisition of property, likely we come in somewhere within the parkway detail, which because of it's an easement on their property, we would be taking some property, but we'd mostly be shrinking it up so the city owned what was once their property. The result of that, just for general knowledge, is it would likely leave their lot in what's called a non-conforming status. So it was legal when it was created. It would become legal non-conforming, meaning due to no fault of their own, we have changed something so that their property is no longer technically compatible with R140. It just means that there are some changes that go, and they actually get some setback reductions because of that in
Yeah.
the city.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't approving something that would then get torn down and destroyed for you. Because that would be a nightmare for you.
No
And I
current
just-
plan to do that.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll fight tooth and nail to prevent any kind of widening on that
Yeah.
road.
On
the record.
Wanting to say something, I don't know if that's allowed or not.
So to her point, and, I drew on there the bigger square, the
Oh,
house.
sorry.
That's fine, that's fine. The house is already nearly done, correct?
It's under construction right now.
Yeah, or it's
It's closer to the-
footings, foundations are in. So, yeah, right there. And so the shop we're talking about, or the accessory building, is gonna go back there?
Yes.
And what we're proposing, it is not going to be any closer to the street than the house is, or it will be by 10 feet?
It will be by 9 or
9,
so
10
feet.
Okay.
So, Robert, I think I'm not alone in having the opinion that spot zoning is not a good idea, right? But this seems to be more like an issue of cleaning up some code, some clunky, vague language, or we've uncovered a change that needs to happen. So, but one of the problems with spot zoning is the unintended consequences further on down the line. I can't think of any, accommodating this. I can't think of any unintended consequences. Does staff anticipate any?
The way, that's partially why I wrote the kind of alternate language, was trying to anticipate that. So the way I wrote it was essentially your side setbacks for any accessory building are 20 feet from the right-of-way, so that whole discussion we had about where you measure setbacks, or 1 foot from the parkway detail, whichever of those two is more restrictive. Mm-hmm. So for all those homes, like on Alpine Highway, where their property line is the parkway detail, that is one and the same, they just have 20 feet in. For residents like Mr. Armstrong or others, where it's partially within their actual property, we're just saying stay right outside of that by a foot, so you don't damage the fence and the parkway detail, but otherwise allow them to use their property as best they can.
So are you like taking that hierarchy, the asphalt, curb, sidewalk, and kind of adding to it, like property line?
Yes, essentially we're adding and if you are next to a parkway detail, here's this other one that could apply depending on which is more restrictive.
Was one of your suggestions to change it not as much as the applicant is asking, but to change it so that it's even with the house setback?
I have not proposed that. That's something that the commission could.
Okay, I thought that.
You can propose whatever you would like. I propose essentially other language that would accomplish the applicant's goals, which is essentially 1 foot out from the fence. You could say something more if you'd like, 5 feet from it or whatever you want. That's just not what they have requested. And likely would restrict what they want. They have a narrow space in order to get a driveway, as I understand it, draw along here. So the more it goes in, the less room they have to do, use their yard here. They're ending up with dead space between the accessory building and the fence.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking, these things all keep coming up. We have different not rules, but regulations, and different houses have different needs. But if we had that 30-foot street set back like the house, the house has a 30-foot right from the street. Is that correct? From the
property line.
From the property
yes.
line.
Yes.
I meant that. That's the property line. No, not the street. That would be not too short. But yeah, from the house. What if we would make that the same for just kind of as a general thing for any kind of outbuilding? My concern, and you guys have heard me talk about this before, but in a different way, is this is like a nice little shed. If we could do each person individually, I'd say, oh, go for it. It's a shed, But we've got these, 2-story pickleball courts that, people want to put in their yard, and I just can't see allowing a pickleball or a big 2-story building of any kind. I mean, I don't care about what they do with it, but so close to the sidewalk where people are going to be walking and stuff. So I just kind of am leery about setting a precedent, and but I would think if we could do the 30-foot street side, the setback from the property like the house has to be, that no one's complained about the houses that far.
That's where I'm leaning as well, because I feel like if there's, in other circumstances, if there's a house that's already built behind, and then suddenly we're allowing an accessory structure to go closer to that that property line there, it's going to take up some of their previously used view. And so, yeah, that's where I am too.
Are there any other setbacks, a house on a corner or against the street that it does not have a parkway detail? Is it the house setback is...
They didn't make a parkway detail for homes because it's always 30 feet from a street.
Right, so it's always 30 feet from the street, regardless of... Any side
of the home, because it's a 30-foot rear setback, a 30-foot front setback, and a 30-foot street side setback.
And there's not... It has to be so far away from the property line.
Well, that's where you'd start typically measuring
right.
30 feet from.
Okay.
So a couple questions, or 3 questions. One, where the shop is, there's not a request to access it from the road directly to the side. You talked about a long driveway accessing it from the same front, right?
That's my understanding, and we actually have a separate regulation that would prohibit access across the parkway detail.
Perfect. The other question was we're asking for a change in the ordinance or rules, not an exception or a variance granted for this one time, right?
Correct. This is a change that would apply citywide.
Okay. And then just the last question is, if this was not next to a road, they could build it within 10 feet of their property line, right?
Yes. I mean, we always, I think we have a general rule that says you can't build within an easement. So if we had a trail easement on their property,
Yes.
I mean, that's actually a good contrast. If we had a trail easement along the side and we put a 10-foot trail down it, they could build right outside of the trail easement
Yes.
without having this additional setback. And in fact, we have places in Highland that are exactly like that. It's only because it's a parkway detail that we have this much bigger setback.
Yeah, which is why I'm kind of leaning towards a small setback. I don't see why, just because it's a parkway detail, it should be an exception to other types of setbacks, especially when it's probably the largest type of setback that we have.
That's where I'm coming from, is I don't see why it should be any different than the rest of them. It's not a safety issue. It's not going to block anything. I don't see anything wrong with what they're requesting and making that standard, especially since it would line up, as we've been mentioning, with everything else and allow them to enjoy the same privileges that everybody else is. My biggest concerns would be safety, access, any of that kind of stuff, and I don't see how that's being infringed on at all here.
And as long as it would work in all cases and not create a future problem.
So are you guys talking about making it just the 1 foot more? Just the setback being 30 feet from the street?
No, I'm referring to what they're requesting, so they can be 10 feet closer than the house. So they're still,
Yeah, that would, yeah.
they're still 20 feet away from it, just like anybody else. And it's not on a corner.
Alternate.
So the people right behind them, the same thing, they may ask for the same thing.
Yeah.
And if you go down the road, I bet you find a couple that's already done that way.
Yeah. And I think, like I said,
I think
a shed or something small, but I just, just somebody else puts in a 2-story something with corrugated whatever right along the sidewalk. You still see it, driving down. It's still going to be.
I wanted to address what you're saying there. I get your concern, but I believe we already have current ordinances that would not allow anything like that. So
That
they
wouldn't allow
can't build it
something
any
big?
bigger than their lot allows, and they can't build it any higher than current code
Well-
is. So current code wouldn't allow it.
Is this
What you
R140?
described.
This is R140, yes.
R140? Yeah, so he would be able to build a pretty big building there if he wanted. I mean,
But it's still based on the size of the lot.
Yeah, but
What's
I'm
the
just saying
lot
that's-
size here? Is it
Don't know
half
off the top of
acre,
my head. It
1
would be
acre?
around 30,000, I want to say, square feet.
so 30,000 R140.
So you
Well,
get.
Trent,
you could
it's
build-
actually not what it's the size of the lot, it's what it's zoned at.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
zoning, you can do 7% of the lot, of the size of the lot gives you the square footage of the outside, out structure that you can build, so.
because the purpose of a setback is to keep these buildings set back from, the road, from public space, Am I incorrect in that? Like from the neighbors, right? And so I think as long as we are maintaining that standard of being set back from a road, a sidewalk, a neighbor, then they should be able to put up, a structure as close to the fence, the parkway detail, as they want, as long as there's still a setback that's just the same as any other type of setback.
And Rob, this
But then-
is only on a corner. This is only on a corner where there's this type of,
If the side of the property is adjacent to a parkway detail, that's
because
what.
I know in American Fork, they had setbacks because of fire and things like that. You had to have a firewall and all this stuff if you wanted to do it closer. That's not
An issue here.
Yeah.
And just to highlight this, the example of this is there is this building right here that is more or less what they want to do. And just so you can see it from the street side, that's what it looks like from the parkway detail.
And how did they do that? They didn't get,
No, they got a permit.
oh, they
It was
did.
missed. when the building permit was approved.
And like, would an extra few
And
feet,
I'm sure his shed would be.
if that building was moved, you know, an extra few feet, you know, 8 or 9 feet or whatever we're talking about, I don't think it makes a substantial difference. It's already so far set back.
So, Rob, would you just walk us through if a developer came in and was putting in a development, they would be mandated to have a 10-foot PUE around the whole property, regardless of setbacks and all the rest of it. Rob, would you mind just the unfortunate monstrosity we have down on the entrance to Highland by the golf course,
Yes.
where we have the Luxor
Corner
Hotel?
of the Canal Boulevard.
Yeah, that Canal Boulevard. Is that set back 20 feet?
That's
Or
Oh,
how did they sneak that in? I know the 35-foot rule applies.
Yeah, they built it larger than otherwise would be allowed because at the time the city allowed breezeways to connect the main dwelling and accessory structures to have it all be part of the main dwelling. So rather than being limited by lot size and height of 25 feet, they were allowed to go up as big as they wanted because it was connected to the home. And still is, if you look really carefully, you can see the roof of the breezeway over it.
No, I know. But I'm just talking about the difference between, in theory, there isn't a parkway detail there because of the way they did the traffic lights.
Yes, and some of this is because there's areas that will be parkway detail, but the way it's written, it's only where there's, as I've interpreted at least, if there's an existing parkway detail. So if there's not a parkway detail, I'm not going to mandate an additional 20 feet away from it.
So are you aware of what happened in this case? Are they 20 feet back? Because I haven't exactly stuck a tape measure over the fence.
That's on a corner too, so that falls into yet another concern.
That's the corner of Canal Boulevard and
Alpine Highway.
Alpine Highway, that's right. Yes, on that case, because it was part of the home,
It looks like it's
it
more.
was measured from property line, not parkway detail. So, oh, grabbed the wrong one. This one.
Sorry, thanks for being patient.
So it actually meets 30 feet from their property line,
Okay.
which is the home setback because it's connected to the home.
Last time we were talking about topics for discussion, and this sort of stuff, accessory dwelling units, accessory buildings, fences, I don't like the concept. You're already 30 feet away from the road, so it doesn't matter. You're not going to muck up the visual.
But I do think it's important they brought it to our attention because this needs to happen, and I respect that they need to be able to do what they can do with their private property, and this is a legitimate concern to be able to use their space.
I think as long as we're like honoring the spirit of that standard street side accessory setback, then 20 feet, right? That's 20 feet, right, Rob?
Yes.
Then we can, change the hierarchy of setback code that applies everywhere, so we're not just
20-foot standard.
muddying the water, and get this built.
I agree with what you're saying, Chris. I want to get that prioritized, but I don't see how this is going to fit in for me, how I would want to move forward regardless. So yeah, I'd like to see it taking place now, and it can maybe kick off with the discussion we're talking about. I don't see it changing, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, thank you. Rob, just for clarification purposes, the normal city code, 35 feet high, maximum, all of that stuff applies as presently constituted?
Correct.
Okay.
The only thing that changes is this very specific parkway detail
Yeah,
setback.
yeah, got it. Yeah, and this doesn't apply to minor collector roads, normal streets, etc. Does anybody want to have more discussion, or would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we adopt the amendment as proposed by the applicant.
And was that the
Or by
alternate or
staff.
the first one?
Aren't they the same?
No, he has.
It's the 1 foot one, right?
That fixes the, it better.
Can we see, Rob, the two again? I thought they were the same.
The end result is the same.
His wording is better.
Just the means of getting there is a little bit different.
That's all right. And the intent was what I was looking for. If you've worded it a little clearer, then, well, yeah, if you can get there, then before I make a motion, I'd like to read it one more time.
So, sorry, I was just pulling up the agenda. So,
No,
I know what you're saying.
so that's their proposal, is to change it so you're measuring from street curb specifically with parkway details, and you don't add on this kind of doubled setback. And I believe that we can accomplish the same thing just by changing this.
So it's 20 feet
It's
from
still,
the
it just
sidewalk.
essentially requires them to be 1 foot off of the fence.
Yeah, so 20 feet from,
The street, the right-of-way property line.
yes,
Or 1 foot from the detail,
Yeah,
if
that-
that's further in.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
So
That's fair.
I'll rephrase that we adopt the alternative amendment proposed by staff.
I'll second that.
Second, okay. Aye.
Okay, shall we go ahead and vote on this, please?
Aye, aye, aye.
Yes.
Yes.
A no?
Yes.
No.
Okay, thank you. This passes, and so you can proceed. Thank you for being willing to come in.
And just so you're aware, we're having this on council agenda on March 3rd. So it'll be very quick.
Yeah, Commissioner's okay if he comes up and just says something? Please come up.
This is just because I have a vested interest in Highland, and we've discussed this a lot. I have a lot of experience out of state, really high-end communities. The one thing I would suggest, if you're going to revisit some of these things, for Deborah here, Commissioner Mon, the height in Highland has a severe issue with the way they've written the code, and that's where most of your issues come from. It's 25 feet on a detached building, but I can, as a builder, elevate that artificially 10 feet out of the ground and still stay in code. There's a lot of loopholes, and you probably have heard me brag on this like crazy, Rob, but I am as much an advocate for keeping minimum heights, making sure setbacks are met and everything else, because it's still where I live as well. But I will say there's a lot of things in the code that are totally dated and need some revisions. But thank you very much.
No, that's very well noted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's get on it, Rob.
I'll
Yeah, no, I
add
was
it to the
reading it
pile.
today, I agree.
We'll invite you to a session.
So, signs in residential professional zone.
Thank you. So just so you all know, the residential zone, residential professional zone, it's the blue ones on here. So we have what used to be Point Move Studios, the dental office next to the car wash, and then the corner where there's the Intermountain Clinic, Wells Fargo, and an office building. So that's the entirety of our residential professional zone. There's a limited site allowance for this, probably the most restrictive of any of our commercial zones. They're only allowed one monument sign per highway frontage, so one on Alpine Highway, one on SR 92, and they can't have the commercial center freestanding signs. So just so I'm orienting to what signs I'm talking about, on the left is a monument sign. It's it's limited to 6 feet in height, about 40 square feet per side. We have them all across the city and kind of spaced out. This is exactly the one that's on SR 92 for this residential professional property. On the right is the commercial center freestanding sign. It's the multi-tenant, taller sign. So the RP zone is not allowed to have one of those taller signs at all. It's only allowed one of those monument signs. And the way it happened with the development of this is essentially the first two property developers, Intermountain Clinic and Wells Fargo, built both of the monument signs on each of those frontages. And then the third office came in, built, and can't have any signs along the street. And the council looked at that and thought that's a little unfair for one of our businesses to be restricted in that way. Let's look at ways of essentially directed me to look at ways of alleviating that without drastically changing. No one wants a ton of signs or billboards throughout the city. So these are the current signs. Because of the way our setbacks work for signage, there's not really any kind of space, and we limit it to one. So I came up with two options that I thought of. Again, there's any number of ways we can permutate sign regulations, but the two I came up with was to allow for an additional monument sign. Essentially, kind of condensing it all down, would be to allow a monument sign on the other side of each access way if they wanted. Currently, there's a 130-foot setback requirement between monument signs. I would reduce that as long as you're basically on either side of an access way, and you're still 15 feet off of a residential property. That would still retain the standard monument sign size limitations. The other RP zones, the Move Studio and the dental office, they wouldn't be impacted. They could still have one, they just couldn't get more. And this would, I think, make it a little bit fairer in terms of monument signage. The other option would be to allow a commercial center freestanding sign, the very tall ones. I copied the regulations from Town Center and C1, so Myers and Macy's area. The only thing I changed would be to allow it within 200 feet of the intersection rather than 400, because if it was 400, it wouldn't be allowed anywhere. So the way I wrote it, essentially, they could do either to replace the monument sign with one or put one kind of somewhere on their property, so that if they have multiple tenants, because you can see on this map, there's a bunch of little overlapping properties. They've condominiumized the office, so there's multiple units in there. So that way each of their tenants could have a different logo. I talked with the owner of this building. He asked for one of those kind of closer to the residents on the other side of the accessway. I don't know that I was ready to recommend getting rid of the 80-foot residential setback. That seemed a little too close to residences for a 15-foot tall potential sign. But I think it'd be fine maybe to have it over here on this side where it's a little bit further away in front of the businesses. So that concludes kind of the majority of my presentation. We did the public notice, no comments other than my conversation with the owner of that building. And then you can adopt either of those proposed options, both of them, none of them, or we can talk about options in between.
Okay, thank you, Rob. Let's open it up for public comment, if anybody would like to make one. Okay, let's conclude that, and commissioners kick off the discussion.
Rob, is there an existing residential setback for signs, like monument signs? And
No.
There's not. That's
No.
weird. Huh. And part of this, what was it, 15 feet?
I propose adding a 15-foot.
That's the sign's height.
Would you mind going back to your map of the two options?
So here's the additional monument sign. What I proposed is allowing one essentially on the other side of the driveway there. So you just mirror monument signs on either side, which I think makes sense as a, drive here if you're trying to get to these businesses.
Yeah. I also agree, though, that I wouldn't want to put it on the other side towards the house, breaking that 80-foot or whatever that amount of footage is between residential.
Yeah, so for the taller sign, I recommend changing it so we would allow it here, which is
Good place.
a fair distance in to the property.
Should we talk about whether or not we want to move forward with the freestanding sign?
I'm not interested in the freestanding.
I'm not either.
My main concern is I just want all the signs to look alike.
Yeah.
Because when, you know, and also when you're coming in, you see one and you recognize the other ones faster because they all look the same. I mean, they have different businesses.
And you
but-
know where to look.
Yeah.
You know,
just-
your eyes know where to
go
look
right
to-
to the signs,
Uh-huh,
yeah. I would like them
Okay,
to look
so we can move forward, it sounds like, talking about monument signs.
whatever, whichever. And if we did do the tall ones, I certainly wouldn't want more than one on each street. You know?
I like that change, Rob, the one per business instead of,
Yeah, one per business total. but-
what was it, one per highway?
The language was written weird for monument
Yeah.
signs before, so I changed basically to one per business.
That
And you're
makes
on shared monument
sense.
signs.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. But if we had the tall ones, I still would only want one, well, in this area, I would say one on each street. I don't know how about going down this road here, but, you know, we don't need, those are tall, and that one sign should be enough to tell people what's there in that type of area. We've only got 3 buildings. You know.
And that would allow, if one vendor or one business were to leave,
Just
they
switch
can
the
just
tag.
switch
Yeah.
to a new placard to put on, and you'd still have the homogeneous sign, and everyone's not doing anything
What
different.
I anticipate if you go the monument sign route is, this is what we have in front of kind of Macy's area.
Yeah, and
Where
that's
it's
nice.
it's a single monument sign, so it still meets the height limit, but you have multiple tenants on it.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was looking at.
Do they have more than 5 tenants in that area?
I forget how many condo,
They've
like,
got
units
2
there are. I think there's
signs, yeah.
4 at
Okay,
least.
so this would be sufficient then, the one with the China Walk and the
That
pizza.
one
I mean,
Yes.
businesses always want as much signage as they can get, but this is more than they can have currently.
They have big signs on their buildings, and their buildings are pretty exposed for the most part, you know.
When I talked with the owner, he said he didn't like to do the wall signs because you have to drill into walls, which means you're piercing the exterior of it, which reduces the lifespan of the wall. So he would rather do a monument sign out of the street that's easier to maintain rather than putting it on the office building itself.
They'll put it
But
still on there.
So technically, if there are 4 businesses, could there be 4 monument signs, but each business is listed on each monument sign?
theoretically,
Oh, no.
if they could meet the setbacks, which they can't. Basically, there's only room for one more sign to be
Right.
put in, and then they'll have to share it.
Okay.
I'd like to see that they couldn't have more than one sign. I mean, even if we had 2 monument signs, because we have 8 businesses or something, that one couldn't be on both.
I propose adding a regulation, you can only have
Unless
one
it's around the corner.
sign per business.
Yeah.
And the way we were restricting how many actual physical things we're putting up is by these setbacks. Basically, there is nowhere else they could put an additional monument sign.
Right. And if there was, they couldn't argue, well, this monument sign actually is this business's. Yeah, my business is listed on it, but
No, yes,
it's,
I would
their
not see
placard
that.
constitutes a sign.
Yes, correct.
So I'm curious, Wesley, advertising's your gig, right? So I would love to hear your opinion on this, because for me, when I'm trying to find a place, I like to be able to find it. And, you know, Google Maps will get me there, but it's not going to find it for me. So I like to at least know where I'm at. And my concern is we're driving, different things we do can drive business out of Highland. Sorry, I feel like I'm screaming. And other things can keep them here, and other things, you know, I want to make sure that we're making it look good, but we're not driving business away.
Yeah, because it's like what I mentioned before, like, we want it standardized because our eyes know where to look when
Yeah,
we're driving
that's
and we're
what I
looking
feel
for
too, yeah.
a place. But like, advertising's not a bad thing as much as I don't like it because I do it professionally. Like, the point is to put your business in front of the people that would be interested in your business, right? That's what good advertising should do, and that's what good signage should do, but it shouldn't annoy you or be obtrusive because it'll have the opposite effect. And I think that these monument signs are attractive and serve a purpose. They're a service.
And part of the problem is a lot of these things we allow, this is doctor's offices, lawyers, all those kinds of things. So they don't need huge signage, but they're all going to be like suite number whatever, suite, you know. So you need to know that you're at the right place, but then that's going to be on a front door so that you're guided once you're in. So as long as you have an indication on a some kind of placard signage on a monument sign, you know you're in the right place and you're looking for your suite number. And that's how that works. My kid's
Exactly.
dentist is in that building. We go there and you have to find it that way. That is how this particular business park area is set up.
It's
And
just safer
it
when
works.
you're, when you're driving to look at a monument sign versus like looking for a sign on the
Yeah, you know, you
building,
need-
and it's, yeah.
You need a sign on the street. I mean, you need a sign from the road, I think. I mean, otherwise. Yeah. But at the same time, a lot of places, like you were saying, the dentists and the doctors, and, you know, once we know the building, because it's how all of them seem to work anyway. And also, we're not going to get a whole lot of people coming up here in our little corner for certain things. They'll come for the ice creams, and we have people going up the canyon, so we've got to, you know, have good signage for them to get their ice creams and their lunch and their, you know, gift shop or whatever. But the dentists and the doctors and all those things, we know where they are. This town is not that big in Alpine, you know. I mean, after you've been here a week, you know where everything is, pretty much, if you're out. So yeah, we do need signs on the street, but I don't think we need 100 of them.
So pardon me for being a little dense. I got up early this morning. Are you guys just in general talking about the taller signs, or are you talking about the smaller ones?
Monuments, but with various plaques, you know, but just, to me, like I said, as long as they all look alike and your eyes go, you know what a sign is. Oh, that's a sign, that's a sign, that's a sign. You can read it fast. But the ones I've seen here with the monument, that's the shorter one, with the plaques, those are all signs.
Yeah, thank
Rob,
you.
when you're talking the tall sign and you're talking the other, show us which ones you're talking about.
Yeah, these ones.
That's
Yeah.
the
That's the tall one?
That's the
freestanding.
commercial center freestanding sign, the tall one.
Freestanding.
These are each monument signs, just in slightly different styles.
Yeah, and Rob, can you just, pardon me for asking silly questions, but just refresh our memory about the height of them. The monument max is,
6 feet.
and then the other ones, is it 25 or 32? I can't remember.
15 is what I proposed.
15.
You might be remembering Highland Mains came in and did an application to increase the height, which eventually ended up at, I want to say 25 feet.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. So for at least the commercial area, Myers, etc., is it 25?
It's 15 still.
Still
they
15.
only changed it for,
It's only Bank of America and
Yes.
Mains. Okay, so we've got more hodgepodge. Crazy.
yes.
Okay, so are we all talking about the monument, the 6-foot one?
Yes.
Perfect. I'm on the same.
And we
page.
just wanted to make sure that it would allow enough placards for as many businesses as were in there, so that it would be fair.
We're talking about height, because they're all freestanding. That's what was throwing me off. We want the 6 feet or lower, not the 15 feet. Thank you.
Correct.
So now we need to decide whether you want it
Yep.
here or there.
And the only concern I had simply, and I think you addressed it, is there anywhere in the city where a tenant or group of tenants in a building would need more than the 5 or however many will fit on one, and that they're limited to only one on that space because of setbacks, that we wouldn't want to discourage business because I can't get a sign because there's more spots than there are on the sign. In that circumstance, I would say something in between would be appropriate.
Yeah, that's what I was going to
But
ask.
Rob, is there anything like that?
Yeah, do we have? I was gonna say
Most
the
of
same
ours, the only place I can think of where we have a lot of tenants within one place, we have a new office down in Ridgeview on just west of the Costa Vida there. I think it's still only 3 or 4, and I'm not sure they're even allowed to have a monument sign. They have a bunch of wall signs on their building.
What if,
But this would only
Well, we have the
affect the
Longhorn
residential.
Yes, it's only
Professional.
Weird. It's this
Yeah.
weird
Let's
little
not talk
zone,
about-
but then we have what's going in
Frankenstein. Well, we've got
behind.
20 different Frankensteins.
Theoretically,
Up on Highland?
owner?
to put a sign out so that.
So why would they let someone else go into their property?
Okay, any other comments from any of the commissioners? And, yeah, could I ask you a favor again, please, Audrey? If you have conversations or
Yes.
side conversations, could we just have them public so that they're on record? Thank you.
Yes. So we were just wondering, so the different places that would be requiring this, we've got the place that's being under construction right now behind Quick Whack and Roxbury and everything. No, I'm just saying, yeah, Highland Mains. So they have the tall sign, but then once you drive in there, do they have anything, any kind of monument signage?
They will. And
That's what I was gonna
in
say.
fact, you might see a request coming in from them soon. And I will leave that for a future meeting.
just
This won't
so
affect
you know
anything
what's
to
in
do
the
with them.
Yeah,
Because
'cause
they're
this
in the
is a totally
CR
different zone.
zone. This is just for the residential professional zone. So they'll have a bunch of signs. They're working on it right now. This is just for this area.
Because these setbacks seem substantial and enough to protect kind of the look and the feel, the presidential, or the professional look and feel of the zone. I think it looks good.
Rob, just for my idle curiosity, just at a very high level, how are these RP different from the commercial? If it's possible to give a very brief summary of the differences.
RP is meant more for non-retail uses, whereas both of our commercial zones are meant for more retail uses. That's kind of in generalities. There's a lot of overlap between them, but that's kind of the delineation is RP and professional office are supposed to blend more into residence. So you have commercial and these kind of professional offices and then residential areas nearby.
Okay, any further discussion or questions?
Well, I'm back to the making things cohesive again, because everything we talk about, it seems like that it's not cohesive. So the mains, Highland Mains, is this sign going to be more like the red and black, white, black, and gray stuff? I don't remember. I remember going through it all back then, but it was before we were talking signs. Are they going to have a similar looking sign on the road? I'm not talking about inside. As
Well,
the others.
Not quite sure yet. They're working on their sign package, so we'll see that as it comes in.
Yeah.
And like I said, you might have a discussion in the future regarding
'Cause
them.
we've got
So I don't want to say
CVS.
exactly what they're doing because I don't know fully yet. So
I mean, we've got CVS over there, and we've got the car wash, and we've got Walgreens, no, what's the other? The bank. And they're all so different, and they don't go together at all. And then we've put this other big main sign up for going inside. I don't know. We're just putting ourselves into a bigger hole.
What does Intermountain do with all of that?
I assume it's reserved for future expansion. I don't know.
Are there any further discussions, or would someone like to make a motion?
Are you guys leaning which way?
It was clear.
I move that the Planning Commission recommend that the City Council adopt option 1 to allow additional monument signs within the RP zone, and that they be the
Yes,
lower.
that is the monument sign.
Okay.
Would anybody like
I
to
second that motion.
Okay, super. And let's have a roll call. Let's start with you, Sherry, please.
Yes.
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 If they look alike. Yes.
Oh, Chris.
Wes Warren was the second.
Yes. I said, if they look alike, and then I said yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you. So next,
This is just a follow-up on our kind of last conversation. Mostly we got the list of topics, and on that ADU ordinance, how do we want to proceed?
yeah, so Rob, thanks for bringing this up. Commissioners, I spoke to the mayor about this and the process that she would like to follow, and I think it's a wise one. So what we'd do is take our laundry list, as it were, and not, if there's disagreement amongst us, and let's say a majority of us say, no, we don't like this, then we probably wouldn't take that. But assuming, let's say there are 10 items or 7 items, if we have some level of consensus, not on the solution, but just the topic itself, that we would then take that to City Council as a discussion item and just say, and have it be a collaborative thing, and say to City Council, these are the 3 things or the 7 things that we are going to be working on. Because if, for whatever reason, City Council says, absolutely not, we are not even willing to consider that, then it's silly to waste staff time, our resources, but just to make sure that whatever topics are that we're working on, that there's alignment between Planning Commission and City Council about the importance of the topic. Not necessarily the details of the topic, but that would also allow Aaron and city staff to feel comfortable, okay, if we are going to spend time looking at, like tonight's topic of, we've got all these weird setbacks and things that are overlapping that have just been accidental rather than deliberate. That's going to take quite a fair amount of city staff time, and it seems like that's at least the plan for today. So what I was hoping we could do this evening is just review those topics again, and then take those topics, or at least the ones that majority of us agree are worthwhile, and then at next City Council, as one of the discussion items, we just say, here's our laundry list, thumbs up or thumbs down. Not necessarily have a long-winded discussion about it, but just get their input so that we can then say, okay, great, we've got X amount of time from Chris, Jay, Rob, etc., to go examine, fence ordinance stuff.
Can I interject?
Please.
I love what you're saying. The only thing I would add is that we prioritize our list by our perspective.
Yes, and actually that's what the hope
Thank
would
you.
be this evening. And the same thing when we talk to City Council, the desire would be to say, okay, here are, let's say, 5 things. They may say 2 of them buzz off, we're not interested in. But then of those 3, what would you say could be a priority? So Heather was kind enough to send us all that laundry list. And then we got an email from Sherry just to kind of expand on some of that. And then Trent, you also had some wonderful suggestions. So what I'd like to do tonight is just very briefly zoom over the topic and just see if we are all in agreement, or at least majority in agreement. So topic number 1 would be ADUs.
Is it available to throw it on screen so we're all talking the same? Thank you. That's the number 1 for me. Thank you, ADUs.
Sherry, you sent an email about that?
I just added one other item, and it wasn't super important. It's kind of a little.
I'm just going to request, I have been working for 6 months to get my email fixed, and I hopefully got it this afternoon. Could you resend that to me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so one of the topics was ADUs. Is everybody thumbs up on at least the topic?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and whether we like it or not, which we all agree on, it's part of our plan in any case. Okay, the next topic was trail maintenance, safety. That kind of fits in with the placemaking thing as well, but let's just keep the trails as a topic.
Is that one? I was reading somewhere that's more city council. Is that one of the ones that was?
Yes, so as I reviewed, it seemed like a couple of these were more of a priority for budgetary questions. I mean, but if there is a topic, like you want to talk about doing a land use regulation, absolutely, let's work on that if that's what the commission wants.
Deborah, just clarify, please.
If you read the paragraph above,
Yeah.
Yeah, right above it.
it says that some of these things are more for city
Sure.
council.
I like the concept about trail and maintenance, but that's ops and maintenance. But yeah, I'm wondering what would be our role in this outside of maintenance.
And I wouldn't use the word maintenance.
Okay.
We don't have.
You're talking master plan.
Yes, there is no trail signage anywhere. I mean, if you have a map and you're on your bicycle or you're running around, you could go, oh, I think I should turn left here, but there's nothing in the city that says, this is the yellow brick road and this is, the blue road or however we choose to do it. But just that notion.
So improving existing, not maintaining or safety
No, yeah,
related.
this has got nothing to do with maintenance at all. This has got to do with just establishing trail signage or making trails.
Usable, safer?
Yeah, it's usability, really.
So if we get rid of that first sentence, I'm good with the rest. But that's what threw me off.
Yeah. Okay, so is everybody thumbs up or thumbs down on the
I love
trail
that.
visibility, at least?
Yeah.
Okay, the next topic, and this was more a discussion of what I think is just a zoning option, which we don't exactly have, but City Council have discussed it, we've discussed it quite a lot as this overlay option, but we don't have language on that.
Is that a common zoning overlay? In
Probably
all
not.
of the cities that you've worked for?
I don't think I've seen a zoning overlay for that. On the other hand, it is a good way of doing it. We've had long conversations about the difference between a conditional use permit and zoning, where conditional uses are how cities used to try to do things, where we say, we'll put a bunch of conditions and we'll do a project. And over time, the state kind of chipped away at the city's ability to do that. Kind of the better way to do that is that zoning overlay, where we say, we'll have a bunch of regulations and you get to apply for us to apply it to your property. And we get to decide on a case-by-case basis whether this is a good site for it or not. So generally specific to this, no, but as a broader concept, yes.
Is everybody cool moving ahead with that as at least one of our preferences? Okay, then the next topic would be just the whole fencing, setbacks, etc., and standards.
On that one, I'm not interested in the fencing part of it, because we did that not that long ago. But the setbacks, if you're going to add that in there, then that's fine. But it's not explicitly stated in
Were
there.
those covered in the recent changes, the setbacks and the material?
I read the code today, and they have certain things that are not allowed, like barbed wire and things like that, but they don't have anything listed about the fiberglass situation that we've encountered on the main roads that are fenced by the developer with the stamped concrete. And it does list in there that it needs to be like a stone masonry type of product. And so it doesn't specifically say you can't use the fiberglass, but it doesn't say that you can either in those situations. So I think there needs to be some clarification there.
So let's actually chop the topics up. One would be setback stuff, one would just be fencing, should we say materials?
Yes.
And are these just limited to the themed fences, the themed walls?
Yes, not individual
Yeah.
people's fences, because
Uh,
they can put in the
yeah.
vinyl and anything
Are there
they
any
want.
other are those pretty much the two designations in the city with fencing? There's the themed walls and then everything else.
There's a third
Trail-
category that comes up very rarely called a screen wall, which is between a commercial area and a residential area. But that's also required generally to be concrete. So like Highland Mains is putting a concrete wall all the way around there.
Right.
property.
And then along trails and open spaces, that has its own kind of extra conditions.
Yes,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of threw that in, because we've also got this hodgepodge of, if it's a see-through fence, you've got these kind of rules, but if it's a solid fence, you've got different kind of rules. And I'm impartial, but it's just, do we want to address that, or do we just let sleeping dogs lie and look at materials, or do you not care that much about materials? It's really a matter of preference.
It seems like an easy change, an easy stipulation or condition to make in order to kind of secure the future and the look of
Yeah.
the themed walls.
Well, I know there's a big difference between having fences that have the opening look, and then if you have a solid fence right up against the sidewalk. I'd prefer it not be a solid fence against the sidewalk. It just seems very enclosed. But I don't know how were you thinking, Chris, that we could maybe change that, or?
Well, I don't actually have any preconceived notions. I'm just literally thinking in terms of main topics. I'm not even remotely thinking of any kind of proposal or resolution yet. It would just be simply, is this a topic that the Planning Commission wants to make one of our priorities, which we would then go to City Council and say, do you guys want us to work on this or
I was
not?
just going to say, that one is a hot topic, just the same people that we talked to today. The fact that they are on a corner with Parkway detail completely infringes around anything they can do in their yard, what animals they can have, what they can build, and everything, because it would have to, there's a Parkway detail, so they can have a solid fence. They're in a corner, so they can't do this. They have to be this far away. So there's so much they cannot do on their property because of all the restrictions. And if we put, you can't have a solid fence on any part of that outside of your yard, there goes all the animals too. Or small children, you don't want to buy a busy road, but you can't have a solid fence. So it gets to be quite a dicey hot topic when you restrict everybody because of the open look you want.
So I would say
But we need to
no,
deal with it.
not this time. Just drop it off. Mostly because where the screening and all these places, they're already done, aren't they? It would be coming up with a replacement at the end. So anyways.
Okay, Deborah, where are you? You're impartial.
I like it as a priority. I don't know if it fit this specific list that we're making, but I don't want to strike it and forget about it.
Oh, no.
Right? Yeah.
Maintain the list, it just drops.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so we'll put that down
That's what
from
I
a
thought.
priority
Nice
point
to-
of view. Next thing, buried electrical lines. And Sherry, I know you brought this up. My experience with the city, and limited as it is, has just been, if you're a developer, you have to bury the power, whether you like it or not. I know you were talking about this the exception.
Well, Rob was telling us that Rocky Mountain, he thought that if there weren't lines there, then they could ask the developer to bury the lines they have
Yes,
to put in.
but existing.
the existing ones, so what did you find out about that?
I talked with a representative of Rocky Mountain. He was kind of non-committal. Essentially, he said some cities do require it. It just gets to be very expensive if it's a very small section of road. And what I'm thinking of is we have an Abbey's Acres development off of 11200 North. It's basically one lot and one road deep, and it's crossed by power lines. So with that, they'd have to buy special facilities to underground it, run it across one lot and a street, and then we couldn't require them to go beyond their property. So he said, theoretically, you can require it. It just gets very expensive for the developer. He suggested a better approach is when you're doing road widening or improvement projects. Sometimes Rocky Mountain Power will pay for half of it if we're also doing, if we're going to finish off 11200 North as now a local road. There's areas where there's power lines that maybe as part of that we could work with Rocky Mountain Power. They'll cover some of the cost for the city to do it. So we could look at different city standards for when to underground existing power lines. We definitely have a requirement that all new all new facilities go in have to be undergrounded. It's the existing ones, when we have these transmission lines that cross properties, what do we do with that? So theoretically, it's possible. It would increase the cost of development by a fairly significant amount.
So if we had done that with 10400, we'd have most of that whole road done, just because we've had developers, we've had the church, we've had the school, and then the park. Maybe Rocky Mountain would have chipped in because it's a public kind of utility area. So it could have been almost done had we required it.
And some of that is more of just history. We've lost a lot because a lot is developed already.
So I'm just saying, like, in the future, maybe we just require that so that we don't have to be on the line for it later on when they require. I've heard somebody said because of this wildfire stuff too, that it's going to be required as well. I don't know if that's accurate, but.
So to clarify, you're talking about the smaller lines, not the big transmission lines.
It's just
Okay.
local.
Yeah, and I thought you just said that's already in code, that they have to going forward, just not retroactive.
Yes, we're not currently requiring them to, when they have those smaller poles, to take the lines down and run it underneath their property and then back up.
That would cost more than the lot value plus probably, again, so. Okay.
He indicated, the Rocky Mountain Power, that that's a very expensive process. It's easier if you have a bigger property. If you have, half a mile where you're doing that, then you're only buying facilities at either end to drop it down and then run it under. If you're doing it down and back up and down and up, it becomes very expensive. And Rocky Mountain Power actually doesn't prefer it because now they have a lot more facilities they have to maintain going down the street. It is an option, and I'd be willing to look at that if this is a priority.
The reason I brought it up is because my husband built an office in West Jordan along Redwood Road, and we were just a section. I'm not sure even how long it is, but we were required to bury those lines, even though the people next to us, those are old houses still. They haven't been, flipped over to offices or anything like that. So it does go. They require you to do it.
Well, I think it's something great to talk about. I just needed a practical application of where it would actually work.
It just would save the city maybe potential money in the future if we require that of the developers.
Seems like there's still enough of 10400 that isn't completely finished, like with sidewalks and stuff. If we finish off, with sidewalk projects, some of those stretches, does it become a little more tenable?
Yes, and actually we talked specifically about 10400, that maybe as we look to get grants and funding from the state or federal government for finishing off some of those roads, like 9600 and 10400, we can incorporate the undergrounding of the lines as part of that, and Rocky Mountain Power said that they would then participate in some of the cost for it.
Especially moving forward with that Strasburg Park corner, and then further west.
Okay, so the next topic then, updated road improvement plan. What would we be proposing?
I think this was part of kind of standardizing the way certain types of bike lanes get built into certain types of roads.
This wasn't about certain roads never getting maintenance?
This
like
wasn't.
you had talked about?
Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm looking at the updated. Oh, yeah. I was looking at the wrong thing. Yeah. I talked to several people who, well, first off, I could not find, I talked to someone that's like, I can't find the road improvement plan anywhere on the website. I'm like, oh, I've seen it before, and I went to the website and I couldn't find it. I was like, oh, shoot. But I pulled it up somehow from somewhere, maybe my own files, and was going over the plan, the timeline for these improvements, and saw some that had been completed, reached out to some residents, rode my bike over to some of these places, and there are stretches of roads that weren't ever touched that says they were improved, and I got like pictures and locations and stuff. I think the main idea though is just s- transparency, keeping an updated plan so that way when residents are wondering, hey, what street is next or has this street been done, there's an easy way to find out. There's a clear path forward. We could even roll it into the sidewalk audit and, you know, everything else that we're doing so we kind of streamline a lot of these things.
So Wes, what I want to understand is what would we be doing as a commission? Because it sounds, at least to me, it sounds like you're describing in the general plan, they're very specific. This section of road, we're going to be doing this.
Is that in the general
that.
plan?
Yep. There's some very specific
It
stuff in there.
it outlines the timetable.
Yes.
I mean, I guess it would, if it changes, it would change there also. But I don't know, something's not working as well as it should be.
So you're looking for visibility is what I'm hearing, and that would be the staff putting it on the website or elevating it to view. We're not changing or proposing any changes necessarily.
Not necessarily. If the plan isn't working, if for whatever reason, and I don't know, I know that budget is a big part, but I guess it's a big question mark for me. Like, why are some of these roads being passed over? Is there anything that we need to do about it? Is it just lack of oversight, or is it just mistakes? Or, you know, I don't know if there's anything that we need to address that we need to do about it, because I'm not sure why these things are falling through the cracks.
Like, is there some kind of auditing going on as far as what's being done actually on the ground and what's being reported?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah, I don't know if it's
I
audited.
see this as the 3 minutes at the city council and suggest it, but for us, I can't see
Yeah.
why we would keep it on the list.
Well, the easiest thing is just call the engineer and tell him it hasn't been done in over 30 years, and then they will get right out there that year. Mine was finally done. Oh, it's gorgeous. But I was one of these they did it with the new stuff that they're doing, I don't know. And it still looks, I was worried about the winter. It was as well over 30 years, nothing. Pothole fill, it lasted 2 days. That's it. And last summer, I called and I said, okay. And they said they had done my street, but my street breaks up in the middle, and they're both short. And they did the bottom, but not the top half. So they did. Anyway, they said, well, we won't be able to get to it. They had their list, you know, what the ones they're going to do. So you just have to get on the list. But I don't know how. I know they're doing it by the list, and they're going around and they're checking and they're making, you know, okay, that one has to be done, that one has to be done. But they came out and did mine last summer, and it is the prettiest street in the city. It's
Okay.
so,
All right, let's thank you, Deborah. Okay, where's also a sidewalk audit? Is this just, like, from a planning commission point of view, is this just to go through the city and say there isn't a sidewalk here and we think there should be, or what's the...
Pretty much. And from what I understand, since then, there is an audit planned, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So then, Wes, you had put the topic of flag lots on there.
Yeah, I didn't know if we needed to include flag lots in the ADU discussion somehow, or if it was relevant at all. I know, right.
But
Yeah.
should they
Which-
be, is that the question?
Yeah,
Pretty much.
Wes is raising the
Yeah.
topic of should they be, and is there any interest in
Because it
the
comes up,
commission
it
to-
came up a few times during the whole, a couple of different planning sessions for the general plan, and all it's ever been is just discussion.
Well, there seemed to be pretty, at least to me, consensus that no, we weren't interested in pursuing
Yeah.
flag lots.
that's why it kept coming up. We said, nope, come up, nope, nope.
Okay, so we'll
And
move on.
that was very much the opinion of our safety, public safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll move on then. Next topic, supporting local businesses, partnerships within City Main. What would you, topically, what do you think we should be doing as a planning commission
So
with
is
regards to
there
that?
currently like a means or a vehicle for establishing public-private partnerships? There's going to be, you know, at Highland Mains, there's going to be some commons spaces that, they've stated in random comments here and there, right, that could be made available to the city. We don't really have any outdoor commons areas. And so it's not as easy as just showing up and, putting on your little city function. I didn't know if there was, if we needed to kind of create a path forward for those kinds of public-private partnerships and, possibly even expanding them to the current commercial areas, because I think that that's one thing that's lacking right now is the city could be doing more to support businesses, and I think that in turn would get businesses championing, what's happening in their city. But Rob, is there anything that needs to be done in order for the city to partner with these developments, these?
Nothing in particular. Any of those would be essentially a one-off contract between the city and them. And so we don't have like a mechanism to invite it or solicit it in any way. The mechanism would be we somehow get a conversation started and then I write a contract.
Okay.
So are we talking like assisted living care or internet service where the city ties in? Or are we talking about
Like events or
scooters or
It's more event planning.
more event planning?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. That's
like
what wasn't clear.
the placemaking conversation?
Okay.
Yeah. It's like nice to talk about and we want to do it. I just didn't know if there was anything we needed to address from a practical standpoint to,
Budget.
yeah, that would be it, it seems like.
Were there things that we were talking about making things more cohesive, like on light poles, like when you drive down Highland City Drag and as you're going up the canyon and you see the
Same kind of
cohesive,
lights, yeah.
Things and holiday things go up and things like that. We don't do anything in Highland.
Love those like nice light poles. And then they have
Just
the banners.
whatever it is that we do,
Yeah,
whether
the
it
banners
goes
are
up.
cool. When the ones
It can go up
change every season.
Alpine Highway, and it can go up SR 92 and Boulevard, whatever's Highland. Is there something that we want to do to kind of stake out what Highland is? We talked about entrance and exit points.
Yeah, and we have that on this
Okay.
list here.
Right
Yeah,
now, we
so-
have signs. So are those the things we're talking about, or are we talking about events?
No, so this is, let's just do this topically. So that's
Got a
more
couple
events,
before we
but
get
it segues nicely. Let's just skip the dark sky downlighting thing. We'll get to that. We'll just flip-flop the order of these two. Placemaking and city entrances. The notion, exactly what you've just described.
Yes.
That's either there's monuments plus fill in the blank, whatever kind of stuff. We
Welcome
want
to
to
Highland
propose
signs and-
to make Highland something that is unique, that you don't just, because right now you can't tell the difference between American Fork and Highland or Alpine or Cedar Hills. It's all just one mush. So is that a topic that Planning Commission would be interested in pursuing or proposing
highly.
at least?
Yes.
Okay,
I
great.
like the concept, but I don't think it's planning commission. I think it's a committee.
Yeah, understood, but in terms of just practical, as I've spoken with the mayor about it, some of these things, they're just not going to get done unless somebody, and it may be that part of our role as the planning commission would be to actually plan stuff, and then we propose it to council, and they say, yes, that's a brilliant idea, go work on it. We come back and say, maybe we don't want to do it, but let's delegate it to a committee or something, and then please provide funding for it if that's necessary. Or I think something like this, we probably could come up with a pretty good answer.
Or one or
and then
two of us
propose
are
it.
on that committee.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, then the next topic would be any sort of minimizing of light pollution, downlighting, dark sky, etc.
And that could be real easy too, because if we started now and just started doing the downlighting, then as we had to replace things, make it so it's more downlighted, let just the top of it or whatever. I don't know, I never understood people are only 6 feet tall, and the lights are 12 feet tall, and I don't know why you'd have to have them all over anyway, because even coming down, they, light up a whole huge area. But
I have a
we,
question.
like I was saying, we lost our stars, and I'm heartbroken.
So I have a question for you, Deborah, about that. So there's areas where the lights are set quite a bit higher than the road. And so when those are on, they're very bright. So I don't know, what would we do about something like that? Should we have like a time where they can have their lights on, they should have them off after a certain time? Or what could we do to address that when they're higher up and they've got these sports courts, they've got the big giant lights on, and it's super, super bright?
Yeah, I know the sport court thing can be a problem. My friend who lives in Highland had problems with that Dye Park when they had the big baseball lights and stuff going on. But they changed it because enough people complained. But even the sport court lights, I mean, like baseball fields or whatever, their lights, they don't have to be lighting the street down. You know, they just have to light the diamond, basically, and maybe a little around it where people are sitting and whatnot. But just, I think we need to be just more aware when we're putting them in. You know, I mean, I don't think anybody thinks about it. They just say, oh, we need a bright light, and they just stick them up there, and it's bright. You know, and I just think the awareness and the intent, and, you know, to do things on purpose.
Yeah, because we
them.
need the lights high, you know, because then it lights up a wider area, but they should be down.
But they can be, they can be covered all the way on
They
the
shouldn't
top
be
and on the
putting
sides,
light
just
out
coming down
or
below
up.
them. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think, is anybody in objection to this? I think we're all in
I think that's
agreement
a great
that this
one.
is a great topic for us to pursue. Well, thank you very much. Is there any other topics that you want to throw on our spaghetti list? Other than obviously the stuff we've excluded. Sherry, anything else? Wes? Deborah? And this is also not a binary thing, please.
Yeah.
You know, as we go along, if in a month we happen to have some brilliant idea, please, let's, just as a reminder for all the commissioners,
But
as long as there are two commissioners that are interested in a topic, we'll put it on the agenda for discussion. So please don't feel like, oh no, you know, I can't bring up a topic. I would prefer it if we were a little more activist.
well, I think a couple of them that, like something like downlighting, which is simple, and signs and things that if we put it off, then, you know, it's going to be too late. You know, there's more. But I think those types of things should be up there because they're the easiest. We have to have a sign anyway, so let's put the right kind of sign up. Let's make it cohesive. I think a lot of the stuff that's, and it's not as expensive as a lot of the other things that we need to do. But I think those things, if we're going to do it anyway, just do it cohesively and just keep that as an intent, you know, as a purpose.
I was just going to add the accessory structure that I added later. Just if we want to talk about that, I wondered, like types of accessory structures, like storage types of things. I kind of wanted to talk about that.
Yes, I would very much agree that is a topic that we need to, because the way the code is written currently, you can put up that unpleasant, you know, this is my personal opinion, we shouldn't get into the details here, but current code allows for whether it's 1 foot away from your fence or 10 feet or 20 feet, you can put up a 35-foot accessory structure.
Yeah.
So let's bring up the topic that the gentleman mentioned today. What loopholes do we have in our code that allows a, 25-foot or 35-foot to be expanded higher than was intended?
Or even something to be 35 feet.
And that's going to require some research on our part, and we're going to have to look into that before we have that discussion. But I think that's an important one to put on there.
Yeah, thank you. So the topic would be accessory dwellings, and then combine that with, and outbuilding accessory, not ADUs, but just accessory structures,
dwellings, yeah.
and then also just setbacks in general, that notion of how that
Accessory
fits in.
units, yeah.
So that's a topic. Heather, please, if you could have that as a separate one. All right, let's just briefly talk about process here. So we'll take the list of items to City Council and just explain to them that this is what our plan is and help us prioritize what we're working on. With regards to ADUs, we already know that that's going to be, everybody's in agreement that we should do it. From a process point of view, I have a suggestion, but there may be other ones that are better. In the January packet, we have written out the draft that we sent to City Council 2 years ago, or I don't recall when we actually did it. My suggestion would be if each one of us could look at that and then, redline it. We just have, in a lot of them, we have placeholder answers. And I think the fastest way to helping us come to a resolution would be if each one of us put in a suggestion. I think it should be fill in the blank, 1,000 square feet or 1,500 square feet or any sort of whatever you think is missing from that existing document, please add.
I was just going to say, like today I went and used AI to come up with a whole bunch of floor plans for 750 square foot ADU mother-in-law apartments or whatnot, just to see what all the options are, or what you could fit in that, to see if that was a reasonable square footage amount, or if we wanted more, So play around with it, and we can all come back with whatever you guys all research.
Yeah.
And
That's
in addition to, sorry, Chris.
Go ahead.
I say in addition to that, I want to back up a little bit and let's go over the problem statement again. Because 2 years ago, was it getting more available rentals in Highland? Is it about granny flats? Is it about, what is it about for each of you, and what would be the priorities for it? Because if I look at it for me wanting to move out of my larger house into a smaller house, I have certain needs and interests for that. If I'm wanting it for a rental, maybe it's different needs. And are we all going after the same goal? That's what I would like to back up and make sure that the business case is appropriate currently.
Yeah, so wonderful.
And can it meet the majority of the needs?
And the goals that we talked about
Yes.
in the master plan.
Yeah, just FYI, I'm assuming all of us have been keeping track of some of them are a bit batty, but all of the House bills being proposed. And I read one that was basically the state is going to force every, regardless of existing zoning, that you can just put another home on the same lot, basically double up. So that didn't make it out of committee, but there's a variety of things. So I think would everybody be okay being willing to do that as homework, at least on the ADUs? Why you think they should exist or not, that's not an option. But the other ones would just be, what's the number? Is it 1,800 square foot? Is it 1,200? There isn't a right answer, but just something so that when we come back together again, we can reach a consensus and at least have something that we can propose to council.
Excuse me.
Would everybody be okay doing that? And then from a mechanism point of view, Rob, I think, is there any possibility, without it being a drain on your time, that we do a similar thing that we did with the general plan, where you allow each of us, or I could just create a Google Doc and share it, and then each individual's red lines or comments, and that way we have one working document rather than 7 different versions floating around.
I could create something like that fairly quickly.
Would you be willing to do that, please? Thank you.
Real quick, Rob, is there an existing metric that could dictate how large an ADU could be based on lot size, based on the infrastructure? I know that we've talked about they can't be any larger than the utilities and stuff could sustain them. But is there like a formula that spits out whatever that number is?
Yes and no. Currently, there's the 5 or 7% lot coverage limit, depending which zone you're in. So that constrains all detached structures. So presumably, you're going to have your detached ADUs fit within that, and potentially be even further restricted beyond that. In terms of utilities, I would have to check with Public Works, but like our current water meter size is a 1 inch, and yet we've been able to find that can serve a house that's 2,000 square feet or 15,000 square feet. They all are operating off the same water meter. So if you have, there's going to be an upper limit, but most of the time adding a smallish ADU won't significantly change that. I mean, that is part of the larger conversation we're having. Is public utilities will have to kind of weigh in on what do we need. Should we? There's a big debate in Utah and other places about family sizes are decreasing. So is a detached ADU just offsetting that, or are you actually increasing impacts to public infrastructure? We're not entirely sure what the answer is yet on that. So we still need to talk on the public works side about, are we going to have impact fees, and what kind of utility connections are we going to be looking for on these types of things? So that's a conversation I still need to have with public works and loop them into that.
Yeah, and at least the current proposal, and obviously we feel free to edit it or change it, but the current proposal would be existing utilities. So there's some practical implications of slope and grade and etc., all the rest of that. Okay, and then just from a practical point of view, would each of us as commissioners be willing to commit to make sure that at least 2 weeks before next planning commission, so sometime middle of March, that our comments are kind of not necessarily resolved, but we at least have something available, so then when it does come time for Rob to print out the agenda, we're not having, some midnight on Monday.
Chris, do you want to lead us out through email?
Well, actually, if I understood it correctly, what Rob's going to do is he's going to set up a URL, so a link that each of us can access, and then just for argument's sake, let's say I've got to be in my bonnet and think ADUs should be 1,200 square feet, but you might think they should be 1,000, or Trent might think they should be 1,800, whatever the numbers are, we can each see that. And it's not so much bickering amongst ourselves, but it's just that, I'll be in red, you'll be in blue, Deborah will be in green, and then we can look at it, and I'm pretty confident based on how we work together as a group that we'll start coalescing about some common, principles that make sense.
The why added to it is super helpful.
Yeah, and actually the beginning part of the document, there's sort of a preamble to the Constitution.
I was meaning whether I think 1,000 or I think 2,000.
Yes.
Why?
Yeah, and with the explanation of all of those things, similar to, as presently written, it says it must be one of the entities must be owner-occupied, and if there is any sort of rental stuff, it just fits into existing Highland code, rather than us going and creating all these separate little orphan Frankenstein-specific codes like we currently have, but try and drive towards some code consistency.
Mm-hmm.
Are we working under the premise that this will have shared utilities?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what Public Works, when we had the go-around last time, it was shared utilities and one, so then there's not going to be 2 water meters or 2 electrical meters. It'll all be serviced from one. And legally, it's going to be, ABC lot owned by the Morn family, but it's not legally split into separate, plat entities.
Rob, I just had a quick question. When you said if we had smallish, it wouldn't make big difference in the utilities and stuff. What did you have at number? I'm just curious. This is just in your mind when you said smallish,
So
square foot wise.
I don't think with the lot coverage limitations we would exceed 5% of a lot. We're seeing around 1,200 to 2,100 at the biggest for lots.
Huge.
I'm not super concerned about that size. We have homes that are 15 to 20,000 square feet and are adequately served by our utilities. So.
Okay, cool. And then another topic to please just think about for next planning commission. we need to elect a new chair and vice chair for the Planning Commission. So just think around,
The
kick
chair
around.
is
Really?
good now.
We can just keep going the way it is.
So technically, you're supposed to make the decision today. I failed to put it on the agenda, so you can't.
Do we, Rob?
We can't make the decision today.
Yeah, I'm
so-
ready.
But you could give me a direction, and we could
vote,
throw it on
not
the
to-
consent agenda for our next planning commission meeting if you would like.
Chris is chair and Deborah is vice chair.
Chris is chair, and somebody else can be vice chair.
I love it.
I feel like I've been
Yeah, I don't care.
volunteer.
I don't care.
I
But
feel like
like
I'm
You
back
have
in the
to.
military again. You have now
gonna
been volunteer.
Speak up in your own defense.
How else are we going to hear all these lovely, lovely phrases? Granny flats.
I have a
I'm afraid
bee in
that's
my
what we
bonnet
call
for
them.
Chris to be the chair
Okay,
still.
can we dismiss? Is there a motion or anything
I
else?
have a quick
Oh,
question.
please.
I apologize that I was running late. I had something at the last minute I needed to take care of, but I wondered if you guys found, I think there was, Claude was put on there that's saying that he was absent, but I believe he resigned in 2025. And this was on the January 27th.
Oh, I think he did say that.
Did you guys see that?
I was curious when I
yeah.
saw that. I'm like, okay, maybe I thought I had this wrong because he was listed on there.
And I think that I had been appointed in 2025 as a commissioner as well, and it says I'm an alternate.
Yeah.
So just wanted
I don't know if he resigned in 2025, though.
We can,
think you did.
that's a
I think-
minor edit.
Yeah.
We'll clean that up before.
Yeah,
we
Heather,
publish.
would
just
you
like-
mind just doing the little whatever tweaks we need to do? Thank you for bringing that up, Sherry. We're really grateful to you.
The only thing I want to point out, there's a caucus meeting happening on the third Tuesday of the month. So the normal council meeting has been bumped back to the fourth Tuesday, and our meeting's been pushed back to the fifth Tuesday. So March 31st for our next meeting.
Okay, super. Thank you, Rob.
Great, thanks a lot, Rob.
Would someone like to make a motion so we can dismiss, please? I plead with you.
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting for today.
Second.
Take a roll.
Okay,
Yes.
let's get out of here. Thank you very much,
need to vote
everybody.
on it?
Yes, we all did. We all said yes.
Yes.
Aye.